Just to start, guys, there are going to be some reflection questions. And also for me, one of the devices that work very nicely for all reflection and it's kind of a free therapy is the pen and the paper. So if you want to have it that handy, there are going to be some reflection questions after every story that I'm going to share a bit onto, what does it really mean, IDGs, about this type of practice. This is a bit of a reflection, a bit of a self-inquiry that I'm going to drive you through. So if you want to grab a pencil and paper, that can be handy later. So moving on to the next one. We came a long way in terms of human race, right? If you look into data, right? So just to start with the positive message, we have been reducing massively all the major KPIs of well-being, right? So in terms of child mortality, population, decrease on poverty, the literacy. In the last 100 years, have been massive. Data is showing that, we have been dropping all the major KPIs in terms of poverty, mortality, and improving literacy, and the economical well-being being never better than it is today, probably in human race. 200,000 years of history, and today is probably the last most prosperous 100 years. We have done it in the next slide. I showed like a bit on how we came to that point where we are today, actually a bit abusing the boundaries of what nature provides. And the planetary boundaries, probably you're familiar with the concept. It's a concept that explains a bit what are the planet Earth boundaries, in terms of healthy operation of the system, the ecosystem as large. Researchers have found out that, we have exceeded most of the KPIs, most of those boundaries we have exceeded already. And we are kind of in the yellowish red zone, and even some of them was not possible to measure yet. The reality is that we have achieved a lot. We have come to a point where, well-being and economical welfare, it has been never before better, and more people have access to that. Even there's a lot of massive polarity, but still, worldwide, probably we have one of those massive population growth and also most of the well-being. But at the same time, we have been abusing our Earth and our system in a massive way for the last 100 years since the Industrial Revolution. And that, where we are today, and reality is that, all different research are showing that we don't have much more time to really come to a point where we can pivot back to operating mode, to the green mode, where things cannot collapse. Because reality is that this system keep on operating at these levels where everything, all the boundaries are in red. We won't be having enough ability to operate anymore, and the system itself is gonna collapse. And that's what we have seen recently into many, many different countries, right? Into the different crises that you probably in the last 2 weeks, actually I was putting some picture in the slide number 5 into Chile or Somalia, the massive Amrund, or New Zealand flooding, or Pakistan flooding from the summer, that still there are massive consequences. And we see clear signal of that. But bringing hope, right? If you want to go to slide number 6, look. This is a funny picture for me, because in a way, normally the traditional way that we have seen this is that actually she's hiding the head under the earth because she's afraid from predator. But reality is that she's taking care of her egg. So the ostrich, they put the eggs under the ground, right? And they really take care and turn them, because they don't have nests, they don't climb the tree. And pretty much they store the eggs underground. And that is basically an interesting fact that for us, and a metaphor for us into how we approach the crisis that we are facing. And instead of facing that with shying away from the problem and I don't want to look there, or getting to a point of where we are too much into the topic that we don't have any room for action. Inner development goals, that is what I want to share in a few stories in a few minutes, has to do with the fact that we can really make something out of that, starting with the inner transformation of how we look into the world. In the next slide, we have a picture into what are the UN goals for sustainability. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Here it is.
No, yeah, in this one. So what are the SDGs? Probably you're familiar with them. So different goals that UN has set for, how we can operate on going back to a point where we are sustainable, keep on growing in a sustainable way. And inner development goals bring the inner part of that, through a framework that is, in my opinion, very accessible for everyone. It's very simple to apply. It's a way that invite everyone to use it. Bring the inner competencies that individuals, leaders, teams, we need to develop in ourselves to be able to operate into a different state of mind as well, where the SDGs, the sustainability goals, are able to execute from the different place that where we are today. In the next slide, we see a bit of what inner development goals framework means, and it's basically divided in 5 categories. So starting with the being, continue with the thinking, relating, collaborating, and acting. So those are the 5 categories that IDC has developed through different research. And pretty much what we have in each one of these categories, different practices that can allow us to really develop our inner self and our collective self into a way that we can act in different ways. So, and you see that there's kind of a move into the acting part that on the right side of the screen. And pretty much is like the belief is that if we are able to relate with ourselves in a different way, we can develop different cognitive skills that has to do more with systemic thinking. We can care about others and the world, and we can relate with current generation, but also future generation and all the different beings that we have around us. And we can develop these social skills to collaborate in different ways. We can also act in different ways where we can drive action towards SDGs, and more important that we can do it from a different place rather than the traditional way where we have been operating until now that has been, optimizing profit and pretty much getting into that point where, no matter how much damage we do to the environment, we want to keep on moving into optimizing what we have. So pretty much now, we are in this place, and I love this topic, and I've been like working with Lutz for applying this as part of the work that we have done in different setups with a startup, with corporations, with individuals. That it's amazing the type of value that the framework has, and it's a very accessible way also to bring inner development to everybody, because it's a way that it's also in a language that is quite accessible. That personally I'm a big fan of that. So moving to the next one. Yeah, and the next one. Yeah, we're going to talk about this one already. Yeah, and I want to invite you now is the part of, take a step back, take a seat, comfortable seat or standing, wherever you are, and take a deep breath. And I want to walk you through a visualization about the dreaming future of 2053. For that, I invite you to close your eyes if you feel comfortable with that, or just keep them open and take a moment to feel comfortable. Take a breath in and out through your nose and feel your body. Whatever needs special attention to release any tension that you might be carrying, you can let it go. Take a moment to enjoy the feeling of your feet on the ground and the breath, the air coming through your nostrils into your lungs. And notice if there's any tension in your body that you want to release. And take a moment to notice your breath, if it's long or short, fast or slow. You can take a moment to relax. And then bringing your attention back to your body. And imagine that your spine is upright and, can feel like a long, long, long spine reaching to the sky. And think about something that makes you smile and feeling comfortable. And now as part of this reflection, I want you to travel in time, like 30 years from now, travel to the year 2053. And imagine that, as a global community, in the year 2053, we managed to bring all the planetary boundaries that we saw before to a normal operating zone. We are safe operating zone. All the indicators are green. And you feel all around the globe where the land and the water and the pollution was radically reduced, regenerative agriculture helped healing the soil, and the green gas emission has been drastically reduced. Fossil fuel consumption is close to zero. There's all new kind of source of energy, sustainable, and most of the people around the globe have access to that. We also managed to provide more access to healthcare, education, and reduce hunger and poverty radically. And now allow yourself to become pearl and to be aware of this reality in the entire year from now. How does it feel? And open the mind to all the people that this new reality is affecting. And living in this new era, there's a true hope about things for the future gonna become better. And make a picture of those people, no matter if they're gonna be reality alive or not in the year 2053, but make a picture of all those people in your life that are gonna be enjoying this environment, this new reality. And you can make a collage with the faces of all those people and the faces of all those around them, of these future generations that are gonna have this environment. And there is all the systems that require, as a society, the organization, the government, the economy, that need to be transformed for this reality to happen. And what are the inner qualities of this new organization, of this new team? And allow yourself to become even more present and more open to this reality. What is really important for these people living in this future? What are their values and their purpose? And you start creating this patchwork and increasing the number of faces and people that are in this patchwork working in the future. And the further layers you add, you can bring your family, neighborhood, different organization, company that has transformed massively into this new reality. And as you have this in mind, this patchwork, ask yourself, what these people need from me in the year 2023? What do they need from me now for this reality to become? What do they want me to learn from my work and my purpose? The reason why I'm here today in this conference. What is that they want me to learn? This future generation, these people in this 30 years from now. And welcome whatever comes to you. And maybe that you have some feeling or thoughts or image coming to your mind, and stay with that. Notice what comes and let it stay. Take a few more deep breaths through your nose and very gently come back. If you have your eyes closed, you can open them. And I'm gonna invite you to write on a piece of paper and pen, kind of whatever came to your mind as an answer of those questions. What do they need from me? Whatever came to your mind. It might be a small action, right, that's required from me today to be able to walk into that bright future. Or maybe big thing, more ambitious that I want to take on. And what do I need to learn to make this happen? So take a moment to write for yourself. I want us to share just for yourself as a sense of self-reflection. Let's see if you want to move to number 11.
I would like to, but I'm stuck.
No worries. Let me see if my computer now allow me to share.
I might need to stop sharing and redo it. This one?
That's perfect. Super.
Okay.
And that was the first story that I want to share. You know, normally with IDG, we work through experience. It's not about telling you what to do, but it's more about self-reflection, self-inquiry. And that visualization of the future is a way to look into the current action that we can take. The other way is just to bring to mind people that inspire us, people that might serve as a reference, a frame of reference, and why. And this is a very interesting woman. I don't know how many of you know Professor Wangari, but she was an amazing woman. She was born in Kenya into the colonial age, where, you know, she was actually a brilliant student from an early age, and she managed to get access to university. She managed to go to university in Germany to get a PhD, the first woman in Kenya to ever have a PhD, achieving a doctorate. When she went back to Kenya, she took a very ambitious work to reforest the natural native forest of Kenya as part of the Greenbelt movement. And she was not only looking into the trees itself, only planting trees, but rather looking into communities, how they can really regenerate the social network that sustain them. So not only providing trees for nature to regenerate, but also providing jobs, providing a way of living for people in those communities. What is amazing is that, you know, Dr. Wangari has left us years ago, but, you know, still her work continues, and those communities keep on working in amazing ways. And you can find, you know, amazing documentary and testimonials of how these people in those communities have transformed their life. And in a way, you know, if you're looking into other type of people, an entrepreneur, Christian Kroll, the CEO of Ecoasia, he took kind of a bit of that framework in that sense, and part of the work that ecoasia.org does, he collaborates and donates money to different organizations, and one of them is the Greenbelt from Professor Wangari in Kenya, that helped maintaining that mission forward. And what really impressed me from these people is that, you know, not only about taking action in the way that, you know, it's on service of others, but also in the way that they approach. And when you see them talking, and in the way how they see their life into the impact, with a lot of humble approach to how much life they can really transform. And now, if you move to the next slide, Luke, I would like to invite you into thinking of one leader, any leader in your life, or it might be a famous one or someone in your life that you only know, that you admire. Choose a person and think about what are the things that you admire on that person. And take a moment to think about any type of person that, you know, for any reason you admire, and the reason why. And what is in that person that I admire. And what is interesting from this reflection is that sometimes we might find that those qualities normally reflect more into the inner qualities than in the outer. It's not about, you know, the material things that that person do, but more the inner quality that reflect on us. And most of the time when we do this reflection, we can show also those qualities that we have in ourselves already. And most of the time we admire some leaders that have certain quality, inner qualities, but those seeds of those qualities, those strengths are already present on us. And it's a bit of thinking about those leaders in a way of inspiration, but also watering those seeds of things that we admire that are the strength that we need to bring the action together into the future. Note to self, and you want to click again, Lutz, into the question. What quality from my leader, the person that I admire, I see the most in me? What are those qualities of this person that I see most in me? And sometimes that question can open up those qualities, those strengths that I want to water more, that I want to develop more, but they're already in me because all those strengths are already present on us. But it's more about, what we can do for those to water more of those strengths, to bring them more to life, to make an impact. Okay, and now I want to invite you guys to have one final story. And before we move into the conversation, if you want to click into the next slide, Lutz. This is a beautiful story from two monks, like two Buddhist monks, that as part of their boat, they have an action to not get engaged into any sexual activity or getting close to any woman, and that is brahmacharya. It's one of the part of Buddhist practice that they promise for life not to have any touching any woman. But what happened in this story is that these two monks were walking by the river one night, and they found that there was a woman in trouble. She was having trouble to crossing that river, and she was in danger. And the oldest monk that was walking by the river, he decided to take this woman on his shoulder and to cross the river with her. By the surprise of the other monk, that was very upset and was very frustrated about the fact that his teacher has decided to take this woman and touch her. But he said nothing, right? And he continued walking to the monastery. And when they arrived, the old monk perceived that the young one was a bit upset, and he asked him what was going on. And the young monk gently said that he was disappointed and he was a bit frustrated and confused about the action of his teacher. The old monk asked him, that actually he was surprised as well, because in a way, he carried the woman for only 2 minutes to cross the river. But the young monk, has been carrying the woman for the whole day through the journey, because he carried that woman and that action in their mind. And in a way, this is a reflection of what we have to let go as well, as part of our learning, as part of our action. And what are the things that, doesn't serve us anymore, and we need to let go as part of our learning. And in a way, I think it's a beautiful metaphor as well on how we engage in sustainability, because many of the beliefs and the learning that we have from the past, we need to let go into learning and unlearning new things. So with that, the last slide, Lutz, if you want to move into the last slide.
This one or next one?
One more. Yes, it's a note for yourselves, right? So in the sense of, what do I need to unlearn? Many things that we have learned through life, but there are some things that we need to unlearn before we learn something new. So what do you need to unlearn? What do I need to unlearn? Is there anything that I take probably out of this conference since yesterday that helped me to reflect into what do I need to unlearn from things that has learned, and probably now things have changed, or I have changed, that I need to unlearn? And similar to what I do need to let go. In this case, in the story of the monks, they need to let go into the belief that that was radically wrong, but rather putting that in context. What do I need to let go? And with that, look, the final slide, just to open the conversation, is just to bring it all back together into what IDC framework, a very nice picture that summarized the 5 categories, but also all the skills the 23 skills that we develop. And hopefully through these 3 micro practices, you got a glimpse into how it can go into developing some of those skills. Normally, what we do is more into self-reflection. And in that self-reflection, bring a lot of insight, the unfolding of our answers, because all of us, we have the answers on those skills already in us, but it's a way to bring those perspective and reflection. And this normally also work amazingly well into groups and team dynamics that actually has a lot of impact on how we operate and how we relate and collaborate with each other. Yeah, and probably we can answer some questions and anyone.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mauricio, for your stories, plural, and little micro practices, reflection, self-reflection ones, and the nice time we spent together. The question and answer part is coming. In the chat, you have the information, you have that link, the Menti link and the code, and now it should work. And if you put whatever resonates with you about the stories you heard from Mauricio, the practices perhaps that you did, whatever it is that resonates, if you put that as questions into this tool, I can then see what's coming in and facilitate from there. I'm going to stop the presentation now, the sharing, and I'm going to the tool myself. And see what questions are coming in from you. Here is a hint for my dear supporter, Britta. I believe you have been in that tool before, because it's telling me that I cannot enter it because it's already being used.
Otherwise, anyone who wants to.
Otherwise, let's collect some questions in the chat, maybe, if it's not working.
Okay, then let's just do it the old way. And
you want to unmute as well?
You put questions in the chat, and we go from there.
Now I can see in the Menti there is also something coming up. For example, how to identify what we need to unlearn.
It's a good question. It's a good question. You know, probably it's a question back to you. What do you really want to unlearn? And it's a way that, you know, reflecting on those things that doesn't serve us anymore. There's another story that actually always comes to my mind on the boat. You know, we spend so much time building this beautiful, nice boat, especially at the early age in our life, right? So we built all these competencies, all those skills, all those things, and we sometimes fall in love with this boat. We use it to cross a river, but then potentially later in life, we need to climb a mountain. And then sometimes what we do is just to bring this boat in our bag and climb in that mountain with the boat, because we fall so much in love with that boat. And sometimes so hard to let go. And sometimes even if we identify those things that we need to unlearn, we don't want to let it go. And it's a challenge. And it's one of those, you know, unfolding of our true potential that are really important and key of that growth. So.
Mm-hmm. I see a few more questions. One is, how can we start using those practices with people who have never tried them?
And actually, for me and Lutz, you know, we have introducing this type of practices with people that never tried before. And we have an amazing experience late last year to introduce this to a group of entrepreneurs coming from Kenya, Senegal, Vietnam, Cambodia, all the very diverse groups. Most of them, they never had experienced this type of practices, but the reaction was immediately. And was so well received. And in a way, there was so much wealth of wisdom in the group that we were amazed because actually we normally propose or prepare some questions like we did now in this 10, 20 minutes, and we never know what's going to come out. And my experience is that no matter if people have any previous experience of this type of work, it works amazingly well, and people get a lot out of that. Doesn't require that previous experience, you know, in most of the cases that I experience. And Lutz, feel free to add, because you know you have tons of wealth of insights.
I was looking at the other questions. If you help me with the question that you just answered, I can add. What was the question, Mauricio?
The question that I just answered, you know, what's happened with people that they don't have experience previously with this type of practice?
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Well, what can I add? Thank you that you invite me to add something. I think it has a lot to do with connecting to those people and where they are, and what the situation or the context is, and kind of like go from there. Having a repertoire as a facilitator or coach or consultant, to, you know, depending on the level, you could say, of the people, you can frame those practices or those concepts in more or less sophisticated ways, you know. I think that's what I would want to add. Now, more questions. Let's see. This is a beautiful one. It was hard for me to identify what I could do now for the people I saw in 2053 in this visualization practice that we did. I felt so small. Any advice how to overcome that?
It's a beautiful reflection. And that sense of feeling so small and feeling I have nothing to be done, or there's hopeless, right, in the way. I've been also experiencing that, especially how overwhelming the challenges that we are facing are. And in a way that as more as we learn about the challenges, the most that feeling, at least for me, come forward as well. And the question is that, you know, no matter how big or small the action is, for me, it's like, you know, whatever is on your reach, and coming together with other people that also share the same interest is what really helped me. Because in a way, when we are not alone in a corner trying to do something for ourselves, but rather we come together with any type of community that is around you, maybe even family and friends, or even more communities that are acting in this field that, you know, can bring something together, communal type of work. And doesn't matter if it is small or big, the action, every action counts. And I think that that is part of the building the hope. And I'm a big fan of building and developing hope in ourselves. It's not hope that comes by default, or is something that, you know, some people have it or not, but hope comes from this part of bringing action. And we believe that, you know, we can overcome the challenges through the action that we have, and we can feel that the future is going to be bright. And it's a challenge, because actually sometimes it's daunting, right? The challenges that we are facing, and how much we can do on our scale. But again, as coming together, I have the feeling that there are more that we can do, and this there's more hope that something can be positively affected.
May I add, Mauricio?
Please.
And what comes to my mind is this quote, I forget from whom it is, together we are many. So this scaling idea, this, no matter how little you can possibly do, if many people do little things, then it's going to be big. And that then means that you should do it. And that there is power in that, and also sharing it, and other people, and more people doing it, and then it's going to work. Thank you for those questions and for your responses, Mauricio. I'm looking at more questions here. Let's see. There is one here. How do I raise awareness on the IDGs, on the inner development goals?
And that is a beautiful question. And there's different ways to bring it forward. And one way is on your self-practice, using the framework. And there's IDG.tools. That is a website that IDG has developed with different practices. There's also an app that is called 29K that you can use for your own development and your own practices and unfolding of your true potential using the framework. So that is one space. The second one that comes to my mind is to bring it to your group, to your team, to your company, to start using some of these. And might be micro practices, opening meetings in a different way, doing a check-in in the true way, really seeing how people are showing up today instead of jumping directly into the project. Or any type of practice that you want to introduce, even tiny things into your work. And the other thing is just to join some of the hubs. There are hubs in every city. Now you have, if you go to innerdevelopmentgoals.org, you're gonna find the contact person for each one of the hubs in any city across the world. Most of the city already have an active hub. And joining that community, in my experience, has been amazing because it's also connecting with people that are also interested into developing in this and to see what come out of that into different workshops, gatherings, events that can really come together as part of that community. And this is a growing community because it started only 1 year ago and it's keep on growing on number of people and interesting fact that people and different thought leaders that are joining the movement. So.
Yeah. Next question, Mauricio, get ready, is a challenging one, I would think, because it really goes, what was the most challenging personally for you Mauricio, on the journey you have presented, and how did you manage to overcome it?
It's an interesting one. Share a bit about myself. I born in Argentina, and Argentina in the year 78, and I've been going through so many crises. Normally in some of the mature countries, you go through your life and pretty much you don't have so many crises. But in my first 20 years of life, I had like hyperinflation, cope for military cope, type of all kind of crises that the big South we experience when we live there. And I think that as part of that, I grew up into kind of building a barrier into how I show up. Normally in this type of environment, you show up with a very hard face and trying to disattach from emotions a lot because it's a way to survive. And I think that part of my journey into this most challenging was to letting go that armor that has protect me in that environment, into becoming more aware of my feelings, building a language into my feelings, and to get it into a way that I can connect with people in different ways. And that's where I became a coach as well, because I love this type of work, because as a coach, I first developed myself. And that's where I found that, also the work that I was doing on myself can help also teams and individuals to do the same unfolding and to walk this journey. So that was probably the most difficult thing, to let go that self that helped me in certain environment to survive certain environment, into transforming and letting go into a new one and learning new set of skills to help me to go on with my life. So.
Thank you very much for this very personal sharing. There's more questions. For example, when I realized I should have taken an advice I got, how, oops, question disappeared. Let me go back. It's very interesting. There's some life of its own in this tool. Okay, here, when I hello? When I realized I should have taken an advice I got, how do I investigate my blockings to take the advice? So this is about blockings and investigating them.
Can you repeat the question, Lutz?
When I realized I should have taken advice, how do I investigate my blockings to take the advice? So something blocking from taking the advice and how to deal with that.
Yeah, I don't know if I understood correctly the question, but personally, I'm not a big fan of advice. I'm taking advice always in perspective that the person who is giving that advice is with the best intention that serves him or her in her life, but not necessarily going to serve you. That way, personally, I work more into self-inquiring, independently of the experience of others in life. Because sometimes when we think or search for advice, we might be assuming that the context or the situation is parallel and can be applicable. And sometimes it's valuable to that, but sometimes not. And if something inside you is telling you that it's not the right thing to do or it's not the right path forward, that's where self-inquiry is much more powerful. And that's part of this type of reflection question that we did before during these micro practices can really help to unfold. And asking yourself, and then if it's one thing that I want really to make and doesn't happen, there's different frameworks that can help us to find our own answer rather than relying so much into advice. That's my point of view. So.
Thank you. Thank you. And the last question so far is how does your meditation practice help you to let go in action? So the emphasis on inaction, letting go in action, and how does meditation practice help for that?
Thank you for the question. And I think that meditation is part of my practices. And I discovered actually when I shared the story about my personal background into Argentina was one of the things that I learned early when I was in this type of challenging environment that helped me and bringing that peace of mind independently of the external environment. And I think that it's a massive practice. In a way, we start with sitting and meditating and finding this inner space only in those 10, 20 minutes that we dedicate every day if we are happy to dedicate that time. But then ideally, from there, we want to grow into the 24 hours of the day, not necessarily like sitting and being quiet meditating, but everything that we do doing mindfully. And it's never easy. And it's, especially in the type of life that we live, is challenging. But as more as we bring the practice into that, we are aware of our emotions, aware of our actions, our triggers, and how do we show up and what do we do. And in a way, my personal experience that's bring a bit more of a meaningful life as we are able to be more aware the 24 hours. And it's always tiny bit by tiny bit. It's like normally we can, the span of attention that we have as a human being, I think that is 3 seconds. Really, that is the span of standard attention. In 3 seconds, our attention shifts into something else. But as we start training our attention with different practices, maybe meditation, maybe any type of traditional practice that can help with expanding that focus and attention, we can expand that attention even more. What I experienced also in the corporate world, that there are many groups as well that is bringing this into the corporation. That is amazing. And this probably happened in the last 5-10 years max. But I've seen a shift, and even the hope that is bringing to this challenging corporate environment where you can have a space, but also a language where there are different group, mindfulness group or meditation group that bring that to corporation, and hopefully expanding into all different type of group, and especially with TIL, as many companies also applied. I think that the many practices has so much to do with that, bringing that mindfulness and micro moments of mindfulness, even at the start of a meeting, inviting people to come back to the body, even with 3 seconds, taking a deep breath in and out, may really be transformative on the way that we show up. And shifting different situations. So that's kind of my point of view. But Lutz, you are a master meditator as well. So if you want to add anything.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I can add something, I think, which is meditation, mindfulness always has an object. There's no such thing as being mindful of nothing. And that can help, back to your question, in action, whatever the action is, to take the action as the object and put your turn your mindfulness on, your awareness on, and shed that light onto the object and onto what's happening around it. You know, how do you feel? How are you in your body? What are your thoughts? But then also other people's in that action, if it's an action together with other people. To create a bit of a space, and that can make all the difference. That bit of a space, awareness space, for more informed, more appropriate action. That would be my take. Now I check. I'm looking at the clock and expecting an amazing closing sequence in the big garden. I'm just let me check once more and last to see if there's any question that has not been asked and answered. I don't see that there's more.
And let's probably we can complete
Mauricio.
with a poem, if you don't mind. If you want to go back to sharing the last slide, I can share a poem before we wrap up.
Ah, okay. A poem, a wrap-up poem. Let me see.
Because in a way, a poetry, in the way that I see it, communicate before it's been understood. And that is a beautiful way as well to bring thought into words. And sometimes has to do with the way that we can bring in that into concept instead of explaining a concept, bringing that into a poem. So, and that's where I prepare like a small poem to wrap up the session today in a way that, you know, for me is kind of a meaningful way to bring sustainability to the table.
Here it is.
And I invited,
be able to see it.
And funny enough, this picture, again, now that is the big fashion of AI, is the interpretation of Mother Earth care from AI. So, the poem is called Pachamama Seat. Mother Earth has a seat at the table. Pachamama has many things to share. Are we able to listen? The empty chair of Pachamama is full of stories of joy and sorrow, full of hope and wisdom, full of dreams and reality. Are we able to listen? Yes, we are. We have to listen. Listening with our heart, deep listening. Let's bring Pachamama to our debate, into our plan, ROIs, and projects. Let's dance with her, preserving human life and helping this beautiful planet to heal, dancing close together through the night.